Former supermodel Janice Dickinson telling ET an eerily similar account of sexual assault as the other women in the case against Bill Cosby. This makes her the 15th woman to speak up. It was 1982. She says Cosby gave her a pill and a glass of red wine.
Before I woke up in the morning, the last thing I remember was Bill Cosby in a patchwork robe, dropping his robe and getting on top of me.
Dickinson's 2002 biography briefly referenced the encounter but stopped short of calling it an assault. A former Pennsylvania prosecutor also coming forward saying he believed Cosby was guilty back in 2005 but claims he didn't have the evidence to convict him. Bruce Castor worked with Andrea Constand, an alleged Cosby victim who settled out of court. Castor was the prosecutor on that case when it was still in the justice system.
I thought that she was telling the truth. I didn't think that there was enough evidence based on her statements alone to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt. Did I think he probably did something inappropriate? Yes. Did I think that I could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt based on available, credible, and admissible evidence? No, I didn't.
Castor admitted he wanted to convict Cosby because of the notoriety it would come along with it, but he says he was, quote, bound by the law. NBC seems to be listening to the court of public opinion, the network confirming it's altogether canceled the family-friendly Bill Cosby sitcom that was in development. And video distributor Netflix announcing it's postponed their new comedy special, Bill Cosby 77. Despite this industry backlash, Cosby's still drawing applause when he hits the stage. That's from Sunday. Cosby performed in Erie, Pennsylvania. The audience clearly supporting him, so some say don't count him out just yet. Comedian Whoopi Goldberg isn't counting her friend out. She said this about Bill Cosby in a recent episode of The View. She says she has a lot of questions for another woman who publicly accused him of assaulting her back in 1985. Goldberg so far is the only celeb to openly defend him. An editor for The Atlantic penned an article on the fading favorable public perception of Cosby. And he also tweeted this: believing Cosby doesn't require you to take one person's word over another. It requires taking one person's word over 15 others. Back to you. Orion is back on Earth. The rocket successfully splashed down in the Pacific Ocean about 300 miles southwest of San Diego. The flight up there for just about 4.5 hours.
We have splashdown confirmed.
Kind of exciting, right? Navy divers working at that site in the Pacific. The divers were searching for anything that might be hazardous after the landing, but it's good news they didn't find anything. These photos coming from Navy helicopters. The data collected from Orion's 2 laps around the Earth will be analyzed.
Orion will be returned to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida for deservicing and to gather more information on how it performed in space.
It was an unmanned test flight. It took off early this morning as soon as that launch window opened up. It's so cool just to watch it, isn't it? Unlike yesterday when the launch attempts failed, this time, success, new era for space exploration, taking us just one step closer to landing on Mars. Steve Lee from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science was in Florida for that launch.
It's the beginning of a dream come true. Of course, it's going to take another couple of decades before we can actually take that step to get people to Mars, but we have to make this step first. And of course, the test appears to have been completely successful. So I think anybody that is interested in Mars is going to say this is where it all began.
Really exciting. NASA hopes Orion will bring astronauts to Mars by the 2030s. Back to you. This hashtag, Alive While Black, it's trending right now. People are talking about this unfair treatment from police because of their skin color. All of it coming as grand jury decisions are being protested across the country, specifically the Michael Brown case in Ferguson and the Eric Garner case in New York. Now, let's take a look at some of these tweets. One woman saying that police actually told her not to report a sexual assault because she'd ruin a man's life. One woman saying a guy told her it was affirmative action that got her into the Ivy League school, not her 3.9 GPA. And here's another example from a man who gets complimented because he's, quote, so well spoken. Walmart feeling the heat of these protests, the company pulling a poorly timed commercial because it contains the phrase, I can't breathe. Now, that is the last thing that Eric Garner said before he died. Listen closely to this commercial under the narrator's voice.
Because you need to do more.
In the commercial, the dad buys his daughter a Walmart phone. She's really excited, so of course she wraps her arms around his neck and takes selfies with him. Many national demonstrations chanting this same phrase, "I can't breathe," to support Gardner's family right now. Back to you.
Get connected with Walmart Family Mobile.
Time's Person of the Year honors unprecedented numbers of Ebola fighters. The 5 faces making the cover: an ambulance supervisor, a surgeon, a caregiver, a health promoter, and Dr. Kent Brantley, the most recognizable face among American survivors.
And I think it's fitting that we acknowledge that most Ebola fighters, and certainly those who paid the highest price for their service, are themselves West Africans. And it's an honor for me to be considered as a part of that group.
Dallas nurse and survivor Nina Pham tweeting this today: "So honored to be a part of Time Magazine's Person of the Year." Survivor and cameraman Ashoka Mukpo tweeting, "Congratulations to all healthcare workers who treated Ebola patients this year. I know it's a bitter victory, but a deserved one." Some called by duty, some called by faith. Together they fought a global epidemic. In the words of Time's editors, acting on the instinct to run into the fire, not away.
There was no question in my mind whether or not I would take care of the patient or not. There was a patient in my unit on my floor, and it was my job, my responsibility to take care of him.
I didn't know whether I would live. I didn't know whether I would die. But the Lord just gave me this sense of peace.
Selfless through and through, the featured fighters asked the attention not be on them, but on the doctors and nurses still fighting the virus in West Africa.
What else can we do? If we don't do it, who will do it for us? So we have to take the risk and cater to the patients, or else our country will be wiped away.
Health workers there currently battling 11,000 cases, and more than 6,000 people have already died.
Our concern and our great hope is that even though it's quieted down here, that we will not allow it to just not be addressed anymore.
For the Now National Desk, I'm Mcnamara.